Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be talking about the Dalai Lama today. Specifically, we're going to be exploring some of his lectures on how to train the mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at two lectures specifically from 1998, and these are on the 8 verses for training the mind.
Oh, cool.
So I know Buddhist philosophy can be a little intimidating,
Yeah.
like a whole system,
Mm-hmm.
but the Dalai Lama's teachings here offer some really great insights, I think, for anyone, regardless of your belief system.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about cultivating inner peace and happiness, and who doesn't need a little bit more of that in their
Exactly.
life, right?
And one of the things that I found so fascinating is the idea that enlightenment isn't this magical gift,
Right.
but rather it's something that we uncover within ourselves
Right.
by understanding the nature of our minds.
That's a key point.
Yeah,
And it leads us to the question of why even bother with this whole training the mind business in the first place? And I think, Buddhism really emphasizes that our consciousness plays this huge role in shaping our experiences, both the joyful and the painful.
so it's not just about changing our external circumstances, but about transforming our internal state.
Exactly. I mean, we often seek external solutions to our problems.
Right.
Like, oh, I'll be happy if I have a new job or a new house or a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't address the underlying patterns of our mind,
Right.
it's like those same patterns of suffering and happiness are just going to follow us
Wherever you go.
wherever we go. It's like rearranging the furniture in a house, but you're not cleaning up the dust bunnies. You just have a new look to the same problem.
Right. The Dalai Lama gives this really good example in one of the lectures. He says that even physical pain can be influenced by our mental state.
Oh, absolutely.
Very good.
I mean, think about athletes,
Mm.
who are pushing through this intense training.
Mm.
Their mental fortitude is allowing them to endure that physical discomfort that would be unbearable for most people. Or you think about individuals who live with chronic pain. Their mental state can directly impact their experience of that pain.
Right, right. And on the flip side, you can't soothe severe emotional distress with physical comforts.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking.
Right. A luxury vacation might be a temporary distraction,
Yeah,
but it's not going to resolve the root of your heartbreak or your grief.
precisely. So training the mind, it's not just some esoteric concept. It has a very direct impact on the quality of our lives.
Right. Here and now.
Absolutely.
So where do we even begin?
Right. That's the question. How do we train something as elusive as the mind?
Yeah. Where do you start?
Well, the Dalai Lama cautions against searching for that magic key solution.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that the path to a disciplined mind, it's a complex one. It takes time, patience, consistent effort,
Mm-hmm.
and a very deep understanding of how our thoughts shape our reality.
He even uses this. He describes 84,000 negative emotions
Yeah.
and an equal number of antidotes.
It's vast.
Yeah. A little overwhelming to think about.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit like trying to map out an entire galaxy. There are no quick fixes here.
No quick fixes. So that's where the concept of valid versus invalid thoughts comes into play.
Yeah. And this isn't about judging ourselves. It's about recognizing which thoughts align with reality and which ones kind of lead us astray.
Hmm.
It's understanding how our perceptions shape our experience.
It's like that inner critic that we all have,
Exactly.
right? The one that whispers doubts and like magnifies your fears.
Yes.
Sometimes it can feel like our minds are working against us.
Exactly. And the Dalai Lama would call those the invalid thoughts.
Okay.
The ones that are rooted in distortion, they lead to suffering, and they keep us stuck in those unhelpful patterns. But the valid thoughts are the ones that are grounded in reason. They have a clear understanding of reality.
Hmm.
Those are the ones that lead to positive outcomes and ultimately even enlightenment.
So the key takeaway here is to start to be aware of our thought patterns and make a conscious effort to cultivate the ones that lead to more clarity and well-being.
It's like training a muscle, right? You want to strengthen the ones that you want to use more often and let the others kind of atrophy.
Right. It makes sense, but then that raises another question. If training the mind is so complex, are there any specific tools or techniques we can use to
Right.
kind of navigate this inner landscape?
Well, Buddhist mental training, it emphasizes two fundamental paths. There's wisdom and then there's skillful means.
Okay.
And wisdom refers to developing that deep understanding of reality, while skillful means involves using specific techniques and practices to apply that wisdom in our daily lives.
So wisdom is like having the map, and skillful means is knowing how to use it.
Exactly. And the 8 verses for training the mind, they beautifully encapsulate both of these paths. They offer practical techniques for overcoming 2 of the biggest obstacles to inner peace. Those are self-cherishing thoughts and the misconception of a permanent self.
Oh.
And these 2 concepts might sound a little foreign,
Yeah, a little bit.
but they're actually really relevant to our everyday experiences.
Let's dive into the first verse then,
Okay.
which focuses on cherishing others. The Dalai Lama uses this incredible analogy. He says that sentient beings,
Right.
which are beings that are capable of experiencing feelings, are more valuable than a wish-fulfilling jewel.
That's powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that our happiness is inextricably linked to the happiness of others. We thrive in communities. We depend on each other for support.
Right.
And ultimately, I think we find the most profound meaning in our connections with others.
Absolutely.
He even brings in observations about the media,
Right.
pointing out how it can be a source of both incredible support and also immense harm.
Right.
It really highlights the power of other people's perceptions.
Yeah, it's interesting how he brings that in. It's very relevant.
Yeah, and how interconnected our well-being is.
Yeah. Think about even just the basic necessities of life. Food, shelter, companionship. All of those things come from other people.
Yeah.
Even our sense of security and joy is shaped by the affection and care that we receive from those around us. We are inherently social creatures.
Right.
And our well-being is very deeply intertwined with the well-being of others.
So cherishing others isn't just some lofty ideal.
Right.
It's a practical recognition of how intertwined our lives really are. But doesn't this idea potentially clash with the importance of taking care of ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question.
How do you balance those two?
Yeah, that is crucial. And the Dalai Lama, he addresses it head on.
Okay.
He explains that cherishing others doesn't mean neglecting ourselves.
Right.
In fact, the ability to love and care for ourselves,
Yeah.
that's the foundation for extending that same care to others.
Got
It's like the oxygen mask on an airplane, right?
Yeah.
You have to secure your own oxygen supply before you can assist anyone else.
Right. It's not an either.
It's a both head.
It's both.
Yeah.
We can cultivate compassion for others while also honoring our own boundaries and needs.
You have to find that balance between self-care and care for others.
Right. Which can be challenging.
It is. It is. It's a very delicate balance
Yeah.
between self-cherishing and cherishing others. But it's worth exploring this idea.
Yeah.
Does focusing primarily on our own needs truly bring lasting happiness?
Right.
Or is there a deeper sense of fulfillment that comes from expanding our circle of concern to include the well-being of others?
It's a good question.
It's something to ponder.
The Dalai Lama seems to suggest that when we prioritize the well-being of others, our own happiness often follows as a natural byproduct. It
Exactly.
almost seems paradoxical, but it makes sense.
It does. It's like the more you give, the more you receive.
Yeah.
That kind of principle.
Yeah, exactly.
And that brings us really to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
How do we cultivate this sense of cherishing others? How do we shift our focus from that self-centered perspective to one that recognizes the inherent worth of all beings?
Okay.
And the second verse of the 8 verses for training the mind offers us some very practical guidance on this.
All right, let's delve into that. So what does this second verse actually say about cherishing others?
Okay, so it reads, "When in the company of others, I will regard myself as the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart, cherish others as supreme."
Now that might sound a bit confusing at first glance. Like, is this promoting low self-esteem?
Right. The Dalai Lama clarifies that's not the intention at all.
Okay, how does he explain that?
So he emphasizes it's not about putting ourselves down
Okay.
or denying our own worth. It's more about shifting our perspective away from a solely self-centered focus
Okay.
and cultivating a genuine appreciation for the qualities and contributions of other people.
So it's about humility and recognizing the value that others bring.
Exactly. And the Dalai Lama encourages us to really notice the kindness that we receive from others every day,
Oh, absolutely.
even just in the smallest gestures.
Yeah, we can take those for granted.
We do. We really do.
Like those small acts of kindness.
Yeah.
Get caught up in our routines and forget to acknowledge them.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the barista who makes your morning coffee,
Mm-hmm.
the bus driver that gets you to work,
Right.
the colleague who offers you a helping hand on a tough project.
Yeah?
These are all acts of kindness that we so often just overlook.
Yeah, but by taking the time to appreciate them, it kind of shifts your focus outward, away from yourself.
Precisely. And this shift in perspective can actually have a really profound impact on our well-being. The Dalai Lama, he reminds us that comparing ourselves to others,
Oh, yeah,
it's a recipe for unhappiness.
it is.
There's always going to be somebody who's more successful or more talented or more attractive.
Oh, yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
It really is,
Yeah.
yeah. So instead of focusing on what we lack, the Dalai Lama suggests we try to celebrate the successes of other people and rejoice in their happiness.
That's a good point.
It's not about denying our own aspirations,
Right.
but it's approaching life with a more generous and less competitive spirit.
That's a really powerful reframe.
Yeah.
So the second verse is essentially about cultivating gratitude, recognizing the kindness of others, and shifting away from that self-centered perspective.
Yes, and it also touches upon the importance of humility,
Okay.
which includes recognizing our own flaws and imperfections.
It's so easy to get caught up in self-image,
Oh, it is.
projecting this idea of perfection.
Yeah.
But he's reminding us that we're all human.
We are. We all make mistakes.
We make mistakes.
Yeah.
So it's about acknowledging your flaws while also embracing your inherent worthiness.
Exactly. Embracing our humanity,
Yeah.
both the light and the shadow.
And speaking of embracing challenges,
Oh, yes.
the third verse offers guidance on how to deal with negativity, and even those we consider our enemies.
Right.
That's a tough one.
It is. It is. How do we deal with those difficult people?
What does he say about that?
Okay, so the third verse reads, "Should my enemies or those who dislike me treat me badly, I will cover them with the armor of love and compassion and regard them as my precious teachers."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It is.
But how can you treat people who harm you with love and compassion?
It's hard.
Especially when you've been really hurt by someone.
Yeah, and the Dalai Lama, he clarifies this isn't about condoning harmful behavior
Right.
or becoming a doormat.
Okay.
It's about making a conscious choice to respond to negativity with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting with anger and hatred and fear.
So taking the high road, even when it's hard.
Precisely. And he reminds us that holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
That's such a powerful analogy.
It is.
It really highlights the futility of clinging to anger and resentment.
Yeah.
But how do we actually let go of those feelings? Especially when the hurt runs deep.
Well, he suggests that we practice forgiveness,
Okay.
both for ourselves and for others. And forgiveness, it's not about condoning what happened or forgetting what happened.
Right.
It's about releasing that grip of anger and resentment and choosing to move forward with compassion and understanding.
So not suppressing the emotions, but transforming them.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
process, right? You acknowledge the hurt, you allow yourself to feel the pain, and then you make the choice to let go of that negativity.
And that leads us back to the idea of our enemies being our greatest teachers.
Right. The Dalai Lama suggests that by choosing to respond to negativity with compassion, we break free from that cycle of anger and resentment.
Right.
We liberate ourselves from the weight of the past, and we open our hearts to greater peace and joy.
It's a radical shift in thinking,
It is. It really is.
but definitely one worth considering.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how often we get caught up in those cycles of blame and retaliation
Yeah, absolutely.
and just perpetuating the suffering
Exactly.
you're trying to escape.
Yeah. And the Dalai Lama, he encourages us to see these challenging situations as opportunities.
To grow, to transform, recognizing that even the most difficult experiences can teach us these valuable lessons about ourselves and about the world.
There seems to be a theme here of letting go.
Yes.
Letting go of anger, letting go of resentment, letting go of your self-centered perspective. It seems like a key element of training the mind is learning to release your grip
Absolutely.
on things that you can't control.
You're right on the mark.
Yeah.
And that theme continues in the fourth verse
Okay.
of the 8 verses,
Okay.
which deals directly with impermanence and attachment.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What does it say about those?
So the fourth verse reads, "When I see beings who are overwhelmed by attachment and suffering, I will hold them dear as though I had found a precious treasure."
No, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Why would you hold someone dear
Right.
who's caught in the cycle of suffering? It's almost like you're encouraging it. Yeah, that's a good point. But the Dalai Lama's perspective is that it's precisely because they are suffering that they need our compassion and support.
Correct.
Think of it like seeing someone who's struggling in deep water.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't just stand by and watch them drown, would you?
Yeah.
You'd offer them a lifeline, a helping hand.
Right. Okay, so it's recognizing their suffering
Right.
and offering compassion instead of judgment.
Precisely. And he reminds us that attachment is the root of suffering,
Okay.
When we cling to things that are impermanent, whether it's possessions, relationships, even our own identities, we inevitably experience pain and disappointment.
That makes me think about how often we cling to things in hopes that it'll bring us lasting happiness.
Yeah.
But then you're disappointed when things change.
Exactly. And that's why he encourages us to cultivate a sense of detachment.
Okay.
Not in the sense of becoming cold or unfeeling,
Right.
but more in the sense of recognizing the impermanent nature of all things
Mm-hmm.
and releasing our grip on what we simply cannot control.
So appreciating the good things without getting too attached.
He uses this analogy of a traveler
Okay.
passing through a beautiful garden.
Mm-hmm.
We can enjoy the flowers, the scenery,
Right.
but we don't need to try to uproot the plants and take them with us.
Right. You savor the experience without possessing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this practice of embracing impermanence, it can be incredibly liberating.
Oh, I bet.
When we let go of attachment,
Mm-hmm.
we free ourselves from that fear of loss, the burden of clinging.
Mm-hmm.
We can experience life with much greater flexibility and peace of mind.
So this fourth verse is like a call to loosen your grip, embrace the ever-changing nature of life.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the fifth verse,
Right.
which explores how we can respond to negativity even when it feels completely unjustified.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this fifth verse suggest we respond?
Well, it reads, "When others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and the like, I will take defeat upon myself and offer victory to others."
That's kind of an interesting approach.
Yeah.
That seems a little counterintuitive
Right?
to take defeat when someone else is clearly in the wrong.
Yeah. But the Dalai Lama, he's not suggesting that we, submit to injustice or allow ourselves to be mistreated. It's
No.
more about responding with wisdom and compassion rather than reacting with anger and hatred and defensiveness.
You're not getting caught in a cycle of blame and retaliation.
Right.
You're stepping back and saying, okay, I can't control how you behave,
Exactly.
but I can control my response.
And he encourages us to ask ourselves, how can I respond to this situation in a way that benefits both myself and the other person?
Right.
It's about breaking free from that negativity
Okay.
and creating a more positive outcome.
So that could involve setting boundaries, communicating your needs assertively,
Yeah.
even just choosing to walk away from a toxic situation.
Yeah, absolutely. But the key is to act from a place of wisdom and compassion
Right.
rather than from a place of anger or resentment.
He emphasizes that taking defeat upon yourself doesn't mean you become weak or passive.
No, not at all.
Our strength lies in choosing peace over conflict,
Right.
compassion over hatred,
Yeah.
forgiveness over resentment.
And recognizing that our true victory lies in cultivating that inner peace and happiness, no matter the external circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the sixth verse builds on this theme
Yes.
of interconnectedness and empathy.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
It reads, "Even when someone I have benefited and treated well harms me very badly, I will regard that person as my best teacher."
Now this verse seems even more challenging
Oh, absolutely.
to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
How can we see someone who's harmed us as our best teacher,
Yeah.
especially someone we've helped?
Yeah, the Dalai Lama, he explains that it's precisely because this person has challenged us in such a profound way
Okay.
that they offer a unique opportunity for growth.
It's about looking for the lesson,
Right.
even in the midst of pain and betrayal.
Exactly. And he reminds us that everyone is capable of both kindness and cruelty.
Right.
And often it's our own expectations and attachments that lead to disappointment and hurt.
Yeah, we set ourselves up for that.
We do, yeah.
Disappointment
Yeah,
by placing these expectations on others.
absolutely. The Dalai Lama encourages us to kind of examine our own motivations for helping others. Are we acting from a place of genuine compassion? Or are we acting out of a desire for recognition or reward?
Oh, yeah.
When our actions are driven by ego, we set ourselves up for suffering.
Right. So true compassion is unconditional.
Yes.
It doesn't depend on the other person's behavior or whether they reciprocate.
It's about recognizing the inherent worth of all beings, even those who have harmed us.
Right.
And this doesn't mean condoning their behavior or allowing ourselves to be mistreated, but it does encourage us to choose a path of understanding and forgiveness.
Which can be a very difficult but ultimately liberating practice.
It is. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ties back in with this idea of letting go. Letting go of anger, letting go of expectations.
Yes.
Even letting go of the need to be right.
Yeah. You're right. You've hit on a crucial point. Letting go, that is a central theme
Yeah.
in the Dalai Lama's teachings. And the seventh verse sums up this idea beautifully. It reads, "In short, all the joy and happiness in the world comes from wishing others to be happy, and all the misery and suffering in the world comes from wanting only oneself to be happy."
Wow. Right.
That really gets to the heart of it,
It
doesn't it?
does.
Our own happiness is interconnected
Mhm.
with the happiness of others.
Yeah. When we focus solely on our own needs and desires, we create this sense of separation and isolation.
Yeah.
And that separation, that's the root of suffering.
Okay.
But when we cultivate compassion and concern for the well-being of others, we tap into that deeper source of joy and fulfillment.
So we need to practice generosity,
Yeah.
both materially and emotionally,
And,
sharing our resources.
Offering support to those in need.
We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
And he also emphasizes that our thoughts and intentions, they actually have a powerful impact
Right.
on the world around us.
Yeah.
When we cultivate positive thoughts and intentions, we contribute to a more peaceful, harmonious environment.
But when we're harboring negativity,
Yeah.
it ripples outward.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about cultivating mindfulness, paying attention to our thoughts, and choosing to focus on the ones that are actually beneficial.
Yeah, weeding your garden.
It is. It is. You're pulling out the negativity and making space for the positive to grow.
Yeah.
He also stresses the importance of developing equanimity,
Okay.
which is that state of mental balance and stability
Right.
that helps us navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
So equanimity isn't about becoming indifferent or apathetic.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about cultivating that inner peace
Mm.
that allows us to respond to challenges with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting with anger or fear or despair.
So recognizing that even in the midst of difficulty, we have an inner strength and resilience.
Yes.
And finally, we reach the 8th verse,
Yes, the last.
the last verse of the 8 verses for training the mind.
It reads, "May all this remain undefiled by the stains of self-interest, and, seeing all phenomena as illusions, may I be released from the bondage of attachment."
Wow.
Powerful, right?
This verse really kind of sums up the ultimate goal
It does.
of the Dalai Lama's teachings,
Mm.
liberation from suffering,
Yeah.
and the realization of our full potential for wisdom and compassion.
It's a dedication to practice for the benefit of all beings. A recognition that our own happiness is inseparable from the happiness of others.
It's not a solitary pursuit then.
No.
Mm.
It's a journey that we undertake together,
Yeah.
supporting each other, inspiring each other.
It's a call to let go
Yes.
of our self-centered attachments.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize that all phenomena are impermanent,
Yes.
ultimately illusory. By releasing our grip on what we can't control,
Right.
we open ourselves up.
To that profound sense of freedom and joy.
These 8 verses offer such a powerful and practical guide for anyone
Yeah, they do.
seeking to cultivate inner peace, compassion, and wisdom.
Yeah.
They remind us that true happiness lies in cherishing others, practicing gratitude, taking responsibility for our actions, embracing impermanence, and letting go of our attachments.
And while that path may be challenging at times,
Yeah.
the rewards are truly immeasurable.
They are.
Yeah.
So by cultivating the qualities of mind outlined in these verses, we can transform our own lives and contribute to a brighter future for all.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the wisdom of the Dalai Lama.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great talking with you about it.
Likewise.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. And remember, even small acts of kindness and compassion can make a world of difference. Until next time.